2 weeks before her ex-boyfriend's wedding, Emma Parker stood in the lobby of an unfamiliar hotel and did the craziest thing she had ever done. She asked a complete stranger if he would pretend to be her boyfriend. The man, Daniel Hayes, a widower, a single father, should have said no. But he said yes. One day. No strings. No feelings. The problem was, if it was all fake, why did it start to hurt them both for real?
I'm so sorry.
The wedding invitation arrived at 7:43 on a Friday evening. Emma was sitting alone in her apartment, eating cold pasta from a takeout container, when her phone buzzed with the email. She almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But then she saw the names: Michael Collins and Sarah Mitchell. The ceremony would be held at the Grandview Estate in 2 weeks. Reception to follow. Black tie optional. Emma stared at the screen until her vision blurred. 2 years of her life reduced to a line on a guest list. She wasn't even sure why she was invited. Maybe it was politeness. Maybe it was cruelty dressed up as closure. The next morning, Emma found herself at the Lancaster Hotel for a colleague's engagement party. She had promised to attend weeks ago, back when her life still felt manageable. Now she sat at the lobby bar, nursing a glass of water she couldn't bring herself to drink. Her phone call with her best friend had ended 5 minutes ago, but the words still echoed in her head. "Just don't go," Rachel had said. "You don't owe him anything." But Emma knew the truth. If she didn't go, she would spend the rest of her life wondering what people said about her absence. Poor Emma. She couldn't handle it. She never was strong enough for him anyway. That last thought wasn't hers. It belonged to Eleanor Collins, Michael's mother. Eleanor had never said those exact words out loud, but she didn't need to. Every dinner, every holiday, every family gathering for 2 years had been filled with the same quiet judgment. The way Eleanor's eyes would scan Emma's outfit. The way she would ask, "So, what exactly do you do again?" As if Emma's job as a graphic designer was somehow beneath mention. Michael would sit beside Emma and say nothing. He would squeeze her hand under the table and whisper, "She doesn't mean it like that." But he never once told his mother to stop. And eventually, Emma realized that his silence was its own kind of answer. She had loved Michael once. He was the first man who made her feel seen. When they met at a friend's birthday party 3 years ago, he had looked at her like she was the only person in the room. He brought her coffee without asking how she liked it, and somehow got it right. He texted her goodnight every evening for 6 months straight. He told her she was perfect, exactly as she was. But perfection, Emma learned, was conditional. It lasted only as long as she stayed small, quiet, and invisible to the people who mattered to him. The moment she asked for more, a defense, a voice, a place at the table, she became inconvenient. They broke up 8 months ago. He was engaged to someone else within 4. Emma's hand trembled as she lifted the water glass to her lips. She misjudged the distance, and the glass tipped sideways, spilling across the polished bar counter. Ice cubes scattered. Water dripped onto her lap. She cursed under her breath, grabbing napkins that were too thin to absorb anything. Before she could make a bigger mess, a hand appeared beside her, holding out a stack of cloth napkins. She looked up and saw a man sitting 2 seats away. He had dark hair, tired eyes, and the kind of face that looked like it hadn't smiled in a long time. He didn't say anything. He just waited until she took the napkins. "Thank you," Emma managed, her voice cracking slightly. She dabbed at the counter, avoiding his gaze. "I'm not usually this much of a disaster, just on days that end in Y." The man's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. He turned back to his own drink, black coffee, no sugar, and Emma assumed the conversation was over. But then he spoke. "I overheard your phone call earlier," he said. His voice was low, steady, without apology. "The wedding. Your ex." Emma felt her face flush with embarrassment. "I wasn't eavesdropping on purpose," he continued. "You were just not quiet. Emma wanted to disappear. She wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. But instead, she heard herself laugh, a brittle, desperate sound. Great, so now a stranger knows my entire tragic backstory. The man shrugged. I only know you're going to a wedding and you don't want to go alone. He took a sip of his coffee. That's not a backstory. That's just a situation. There was something strangely calming about the way he said it. No pity, no advice, just acknowledgement. Emma didn't know what made her say it. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, not with judgment, but with the tired understanding of someone who had also been broken by something. The words came out before she could stop them. Would you pretend to be my boyfriend? Just for the wedding? One day. I know it sounds insane. I know you're a complete stranger. But I can't walk in there alone. And I can't not go. And I don't have anyone else to ask. The moment the sentence ended, Emma wanted to take it back. She braced herself for the look of discomfort, the polite excuse, the quick escape. But the man didn't move. He just looked at her with those tired eyes, studying her face like he was trying to solve a problem. Then he said, I have a daughter. She's 5. I don't do impulsive things. Emma nodded quickly, already standing. Of course, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Please forget I said anything.
Oh no, I'm so
She grabbed her
sorry.
purse and turned to leave. But before she could take a step, he spoke again. When's the wedding? Emma froze. She turned back slowly. 2 weeks from today, a Saturday. He was quiet for a long moment. His fingers traced the rim of his coffee cup. Why me? He asked finally. You don't know anything about me. Emma didn't have a good answer, so she told him the truth. Because you handed me napkins when I spilled my water. And you didn't look at me like I was pathetic. He considered this. That's a low bar. She almost smiled. You'd be surprised how few people clear it. Another silence stretched between them. Then the man reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Daniel Hayes, he said, sliding it across the bar toward her. Put your number in. I'll think about it. Emma blinked. Seriously? He didn't smile, but there was something almost warm in his voice. One day. No emotions. No expectations afterward. If I say yes, those are the conditions. Emma's hand shook slightly as she typed in her number. She didn't know if this was hope or desperation. Maybe they were the same thing. She handed the phone back. Daniel looked at the screen, then at her. I don't know why I'm even considering this, he said. But something about the way you're trying so hard not to cry is making it very difficult to say no. Emma swallowed. Is that a yes? Daniel stood, tucking his phone into his jacket. It's a maybe. I have to pick up my daughter from the kids' activity center. I'll text you tonight. He started to walk away, then stopped. What's your name? She realized she hadn't told him. Emma. Emma Parker. He nodded once. Good night, Emma Parker. Try not to spill anything else. And then he was gone, disappearing into the elevator, leaving Emma standing alone at the bar with a pile of wet napkins and the strange, terrifying feeling that she had just changed something she couldn't take back. That night at 11:14, her phone buzzed. One message from an unknown number. Saturday works. 1 day, 1 performance. That's it. Daniel. Emma read the message 3 times. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So she did both, sitting on her kitchen floor in the dark, wondering what she had just agreed to, and whether Daniel Hayes had any idea what he was walking into. 1 week before the wedding, Emma sat across from Daniel at a small cafe 3 blocks from her office. It was their second meeting since the hotel bar, and the awkwardness hadn't faded. Daniel arrived exactly on time, ordered black coffee without looking at the menu, and sat with his hands folded on the table, like he was preparing for a business negotiation. Emma had a notebook open in front of her, filled with scribbled questions she was too embarrassed to ask out loud. "So," she began, tapping her pen against the paper, "we should probably figure out our story. How we met, how long we've been together, that kind of thing." Daniel nodded. "Makes sense. What did you have in mind?" Emma glanced at her notes. "I was thinking we could say we met at a coffee shop. Maybe this one, or one near my apartment. Something simple, believable." She looked up at him. "We've been dating for 4 months, long enough to be serious, but not so long that people will ask why they've never heard of you." Daniel considered this. 4 months? That's reasonable. He took a sip of his coffee. "What else do they need to know?" Emma hesitated. "Small details. Things couples would know about each other. Like, you take your coffee black. I like milk tea. We argue about it sometimes." A ghost of a smile crossed Daniel's face. "Do we? Who wins?" Emma shrugged. "Neither. That's why we're still arguing." For the next hour, they built the architecture of a relationship that didn't exist. Daniel learned that Emma worked as a graphic designer at a marketing firm, that she grew up in Ohio, that she hated cilantro and loved thunderstorms. Emma learned that Daniel was an architect, that he had moved to the city after his wife passed away 3 years ago, and that he hadn't been on a date since. That last detail slipped out accidentally, and Daniel looked away as soon as he said it. Emma didn't push. She understood the weight of things people weren't ready to share. By the end of their meeting, Emma had filled 3 pages with notes. Daniel had memorized everything without writing anything down. As they stood to leave, he said, "You do this thing when you talk about yourself. You make everything smaller than it is." Emma frowned. "What do you mean?" He pulled on his jacket. "Your job isn't just okay. Your apartment isn't nothing special. You keep apologizing for existing." Emma didn't know how to respond. No one had ever pointed that out before. "It's a habit," she said finally. "I guess I got used to making myself easy to overlook." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. "That's a terrible habit," he said. And then he left. 5 days before the wedding, Daniel texted Emma asking if they could meet again. His usual babysitter had canceled, so he would have to bring his daughter. Emma agreed, though the thought of meeting a 5-year-old made her more nervous than the wedding itself. They met at a park near Daniel's apartment. Emma spotted them on a bench near the playground, Daniel in his usual dark jacket, and beside him, a small girl with curly brown hair and bright, curious eyes. The girl was holding a stuffed rabbit and talking animatedly, while Daniel listened with the kind of patience that only comes from practice. Emma approached slowly, unsure how to introduce herself. But before she could speak, the girl looked up and said, "Are you the lady from Daddy's phone?" Emma blinked. What?" Daniel's expression shifted to something resembling embarrassment. "Lily, we talked about this. You're not supposed to look at my messages." Lily shrugged with the unapologetic honesty of a child. "You left it on the table. I can read now. Mostly." She turned back to Emma. "Your name is Emma. Daddy typed it a lot." Emma felt her face warm. She glanced at Daniel, who was suddenly very interested in the trees across the park. "Yes," Emma said, crouching down to Lily's level. "I'm Emma. It's nice to meet you, Lily." Lily studied her with an intensity that felt almost clinical. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" The question hit Emma like a truck. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Daniel intervened quickly. "Lily, Emma is a friend. We're helping each other with something." Lily considered this. "Like when Tommy helps me with math and I help him with reading." Daniel nodded. "Exactly like that." Lily seemed satisfied with the answer. She held up her stuffed rabbit. "This is Mr. Buttons. He doesn't like strangers, but I told him you seem okay." Emma smiled despite herself. "Thank you, Mr. Buttons. I'll try to live up to your expectations." They spent the afternoon at the park while Lily played on the swings and the slide. Emma watched Daniel interact with his daughter, and something shifted inside her chest. He wasn't perfect. He struggled to tie her shoelaces evenly. He got the words wrong when she asked him to sing a song from her favorite cartoon. When he tried to braid her hair, the result looked more like a tangled knot than anything intentional. But he tried. He knelt down to her height when he spoke to her. He wiped her face gently when she got dirt on her cheek. He listened to her rambling stories about school and imaginary friends, like they were the most important things in the world. At one point, Lily ran off to chase a butterfly, and Daniel sat down beside Emma on the bench. They watched her in silence for a moment. Then Emma said, "She's wonderful." Daniel nodded. "She's the only thing I got right." His voice was quiet, stripped of any pretense. "After my wife died, I didn't know how to do anything. I couldn't cook. I couldn't sleep. I forgot to pay bills, missed appointments, burned dinner almost every night. But Lily needed me to be okay, so I learned how to fake it. And somewhere along the way, the faking turned into something real." Emma looked at him. "That doesn't sound like faking. That sounds like surviving." Daniel turned to face her. His eyes held a question she wasn't prepared for. "Can I ask you something?" Emma nodded. "Why do you really want to go to this wedding? It's not just about saving face, is it?" Emma's throat tightened. She had been asking herself the same question for days, but hearing it out loud made it harder to avoid. "I don't know," she admitted. "I think I want to prove something. That I'm not the person they thought I was. That I'm not pathetic." Daniel shook his head slowly. "You're not pathetic, Emma. But I don't think you need a fake boyfriend to prove that." His words cut deeper than he probably intended. "I think you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need someone to choose you, really choose you. And you've never had that." Before Emma could respond, Lily came running back, breathless and grinning. "Daddy! Daddy! I almost caught it, but it flew too high." Daniel scooped her up, and the moment passed. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that he had seen something in her that she had spent years trying to hide. As they walked back to Daniel's car, Lily tugged on Emma's sleeve. "I like you," she announced. "Daddy smiles more when you're here. He doesn't smile a lot usually." Emma didn't know what to say. She looked at Daniel, who was very deliberately not looking at her. And for the first time, she wondered if this arrangement was something more than either of them had bargained for. The wedding arrived on a Saturday afternoon. Emma stood in front of her mirror for 45 minutes, adjusting the same strand of hair, convinced that nothing she wore would be good enough. When Daniel texted that he was downstairs, she grabbed her clutch and forced herself to walk out the door. He was waiting beside a dark gray sedan, dressed in a charcoal suit that made him look like a different person. Not better, just more visible. He opened the car door for her without a word, and they drove to the Grandview estate in near silence. The venue was exactly what Emma had expected. White tents, string lights, flowers everywhere, and the kind of effortless elegance that required an enormous amount of money to achieve. Emma's stomach churned as they walked through the entrance. Daniel's hand found the small of her back, light, steady, grounding. "Breathe," he murmured. "You're not alone." She wanted to believe him. They found their seats near the back, and Emma scanned the crowd for familiar faces. She spotted Michael's sister, a few of his college friends, and then Eleanor Collins. Michael's mother stood near the front, dressed in pale blue, greeting guests with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. When Eleanor's gaze landed on Emma, the smile faltered for just a moment before hardening into something polite and poisonous. The ceremony was brief. Michael looked happy. His bride, Sarah, looked radiant. Emma watched them exchange vows and felt nothing. No jealousy, no regret, no longing. Just the hollow ache of watching someone else live the life she had once imagined for herself. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the crowd applauded, and Emma clapped along, her hands moving automatically. Daniel glanced at her. "You okay?" She nodded. "I think so. I thought this would hurt more." He didn't respond, but his hand found hers and squeezed once. It was the kind of gesture that meant more than words. The reception was worse. Emma and Daniel found their table, made small talk with strangers, and survived the first hour without incident. But then Eleanor appeared at their table, champagne glass in hand, smile sharp as a blade. "Emma," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "I almost didn't recognize you. You look so different. Having someone new must agree with you." Emma felt her spine stiffen. "Thank you, Eleanor. You look lovely as always." Eleanor's eyes slid to Daniel. "And who is this? I don't believe we've met." Daniel stood and extended his hand. "Daniel Hayes. I'm Emma's boyfriend." He said it simply, without hesitation, like it was the most obvious fact in the world. Eleanor's smile tightened. "How nice. And what do you do, Daniel?" Her tone made it clear she expected the answer to be disappointing. "I'm an architect," Daniel replied. "I design buildings that don't collapse." Emma nearly choked on her wine. Eleanor's expression flickered with something close to annoyance. "How practical." She turned back to Emma. "I have to say, I'm surprised you came. After everything, I thought you might want to keep your distance." The implication was clear. You weren't wanted here. Emma opened her mouth to respond, but Daniel spoke first. "Emma's one of the strongest people I know," he said calmly. "It takes courage to show up when it would be easier to hide. I think that says more about her character than anything else." Eleanor blinked, clearly unused to being contradicted. She recovered quickly, her smile returning like a mask snapping back into place. "Well, how fortunate that Emma found someone so supportive." She glided away without another word, leaving a chill in her wake. Emma let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you," she whispered. "You didn't have to do that." Daniel sat back down beside her. "Yes, I did." He didn't explain further, but the look in his eyes told her everything. This wasn't part of the script. This was something real. Later that evening, Michael found Emma near the dessert table. Daniel had stepped away to get drinks, and for a moment, Emma was alone with the man she had once thought she would marry. "Hey," Michael said, his voice soft, almost nervous. "I'm glad you came." Emma studied his face, the same face she had loved, the same face that had watched her be diminished again and again without saying a word. "Are you?" she asked. Michael shifted uncomfortably. "I know things ended badly between us. I wanted to make sure you're okay. Are you happy?" The question felt like a trap. Emma realized with sudden clarity that Michael wasn't asking because he cared about her answer. He was asking because he needed to believe he hadn't hurt her. He needed to feel like the good guy in his own story. "I'm fine, Michael," Emma said evenly. "You don't need to worry about me." Relief washed over his face, and that relief told her everything she needed to know. He had never really seen her. He had only seen the version of her that made him feel comfortable. Daniel returned with 2 glasses of champagne, and Michael excused himself with a tight smile. "Old friend?" Daniel asked, handing her a glass. "Old mistake," Emma corrected. And for the first time all night, she almost smiled. The drive home was quiet. Emma stared out the window, watching the streetlights blur past. Daniel kept his eyes on the road, but there was a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. When they stopped at a red light, he finally spoke. I need to tell you something. Emma turned to look at him. What is it? Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I don't know when it happened. Maybe it was the park. Maybe it was watching you face down that woman tonight. But somewhere along the way, I stopped pretending. He looked at her, and his eyes held something raw and unguarded. I'm not acting anymore, Emma. I don't know what this is, but it's not fake. Not for me. Emma felt the air leave her lungs. She had imagined this moment. Someone choosing her, really choosing her. But now that it was happening, all she felt was terror. Every voice in her head screamed that this couldn't be real, that she would ruin it, that she wasn't enough. Daniel, you have Lily, she said, her voice trembling. You have a whole life. You don't need me complicating things. I'm not... She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Daniel waited. You're not what? Emma's eyes burned. I'm not the right person for you. I'm a mess. I'm broken. You deserve someone who has their life together, not someone who asks strangers to be their fake boyfriend. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly, and something in his expression closed off. Okay, he said softly. I understand. He didn't argue. He didn't try to convince her. He just accepted her decision, even though she could see the pain behind his eyes. Thank you, Emma, he said as he pulled up in front of her apartment. For today, it was a really beautiful day. Emma couldn't speak. She opened the car door, stepped onto the sidewalk, and watched him drive away into the night. She had gotten everything she wanted. She had survived the wedding. She had kept her dignity. Eleanor Collins had nothing to hold over her. So why did she feel like she had just lost the only thing that mattered? The days after the wedding passed in a blur of silence. Emma went to work, answered emails, attended meetings, and smiled when she was supposed to smile. But inside, she felt hollow. She had done exactly what she set out to do. She had walked into that wedding with her head held high. She had faced Eleanor Collins without flinching. She had proven to everyone, including herself, that she wasn't the broken, pathetic woman they expected her to be. And yet, none of it mattered. Because the moment Daniel's car disappeared around the corner, she realized the truth she had been running from all along. She hadn't pushed him away because she didn't want him. She had pushed him away because she was terrified that he would eventually see what everyone else saw, that she wasn't enough. On the third night after the wedding, Emma sat alone in her apartment, staring at her phone. Daniel's contact was still there, his name glowing on the screen. She had typed and deleted a dozen messages, each one sounding more desperate than the last. What could she say? I'm sorry I told you to leave. I'm sorry I decided for you that I wasn't worth staying for. She put the phone down and buried her face in her hands. This was the pattern of her entire life. She waited for people to reject her, and when they didn't do it fast enough, she did it for them. She had spent so long believing she wasn't enough that she had turned it into a self-fulfilling prophecy. Across the city, Daniel was lying on his daughter's bed, reading her favorite story for the third time that week. Lily had fallen asleep somewhere around page 12, her small hand still clutching Mr. Button's. Daniel closed the book and watched her breathe, the way he had done every night since his wife died. For 3 years, this had been enough. Lily was enough. Being her father was enough. He had convinced himself that he didn't need anything else, that wanting more would somehow be a betrayal of the life he had built. But tonight, the silence felt different. It felt like something was missing. He was halfway to the door when Lily's voice stopped him. Daddy? He turned back. Her eyes were half open, still heavy with sleep. Is Emma going to come play with us again? The question hit him harder than he expected. He walked back to her bed and knelt beside her. I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe not. Lily frowned. her small face scrunching in confusion. "But you're sad. Like when Mommy went away." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "It's not the same thing, Lily." She shook her head stubbornly. "You look the same. But Emma didn't go away. She's still here. You could just go find her." Daniel didn't have an answer for that. He kissed her forehead and turned off the light, but her words stayed with him long after she fell back asleep. The next evening, Emma heard a knock at her door. She wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment, she considered not answering, but something made her get up, cross the room, and turn the handle. Daniel stood in the hallway, still wearing his work clothes, looking like he hadn't slept in days. And beside him, holding his hand with both of hers, was Lily. She was wearing a bright yellow raincoat even though it wasn't raining, and she smiled up at Emma like they were old friends. "Hi, Emma," Lily said. "Daddy said we're here to talk. I said we should bring ice cream, but he said no. I think he's wrong." Emma couldn't help it. She laughed. It was a small, broken sound, but it was real. She looked at Daniel, searching his face for some sign of what this meant. He met her gaze steadily. "Can we come in?" She stepped aside and let them enter. They sat in her small living room, Daniel on one end of the couch, Emma on the other, Lily between them with Mr. Buttons on her lap. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Daniel leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his eyes fixed on the floor. "I've been thinking about what you said, about how I have Lily, and I don't need complications." He looked up at her. "You were wrong." Emma opened her mouth to protest, but he kept going. "I'm not here in spite of Lily. I'm here because of her. For 3 years, I've been telling myself that being her father was enough, that I didn't have room for anything else. But the truth is, I was scared. I lost my wife, and I didn't think I could survive losing anyone else, so I stopped trying." He reached out and took Emma's hand. His grip was warm, steady, certain. "Lily asked me why I was sad. She said I looked the same way I did when her mother died, and she was right. But she also said something else. She said you didn't leave. You're still here, and I could just come find you." Emma felt tears sliding down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. "Daniel, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to believe that someone will actually stay." Daniel squeezed her hand. "Neither do I. But I want to try. Slowly. Honestly. No more pretending." He glanced at Lily, who was watching them both with wide, curious eyes. "I want my daughter to see me be brave. I want her to know that it's okay to be scared, as long as you don't let the fear make your choices for you." He turned back to Emma. "You have every right to say no, but you don't get to decide for me that I don't want this. That's my choice, and I'm choosing you." Emma didn't know what to say. For her entire life, she had been waiting for someone to see her, really see her, and choose her anyway. And now that it was happening, she didn't know how to accept it. But she also knew that if she pushed him away again, she would regret it for the rest of her life. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I'm so scared." Daniel nodded. "I know. Me too." Lily tugged on Emma's sleeve. "Emma, do you want to get ice cream with us? Daddy said no before, but I think if you say yes, he'll change his mind." Emma laughed through her tears. She looked at Daniel, who was trying very hard not to smile. "I think ice cream sounds perfect," she said. Lily cheered and jumped off the couch, already heading for the door. Daniel stood and offered Emma his hand. She took it, and he pulled her to her feet. For a moment, they just stood there, inches apart, not saying anything. Then Daniel leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "One step at a time," he said. "That's all I'm asking." Emma nodded. One step at a time. They walked out of her apartment together. Daniel, Emma, and Lily. The evening air was cool, and the streetlights were just beginning to flicker on. Lily walked between them, holding both their hands, swinging her arms back and forth like she didn't have a care in the world. No one talked about the future. No one made promises they couldn't keep. There was just this moment. 3 people walking down a sidewalk, taking one step and then another, and then another. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Emma thought that maybe, just maybe, that was enough.